Today I'm going to continue to debug the C++ application or project that I'm building. I figured out what was the problem, but I didn't figure out the solution yet. So that's what I'm gonna try to do now. Yeah, put this. So the shitty part about this is that it didn't. So the problem was the uniforms, but it didn't throw any error. So I spent a bunch of time because I wasn't sure, obviously. So I got all the code from the other project that draws a simple triangle, and I comment everything out from IMGUI, so I could eliminate as much things as possible uh, to make it easier, obviously. I think I'm gonna just remove. And then the last thing that I did was to create another class, which I think I should. It was a mistake to build everything first. I should have just got all the OpenGL functions that the 3PP uses and puts it create a simple class that uses all these functions and just like simplify as much as possible, then test to see if that would work, and then do everything else. But I think I was just concerned with so many things that I didn't think about that. So, but if I could go back, it was probably the better way. So the error was pretty simple actually. It's just the setting. I'm not really sure why that's happening, but the function it's probably something to do with the types. So that's what I'm gonna try to figure out. But the way that I figured out was just to create this other class, test draw here, and then I just separated all the code, and then it still wasn't working. But then when I put this thing here, it started working, which is from the other example. And then that made me think that it was the files, but then I tested, and it's actually just because this one doesn't use the projection, the model, and the other stuff, so it just works. So now it's showing here. So what I'm gonna do is just to. Oh, the other annoying thing about the way that I did the CMake is that once it copies the files to the final build folder, it doesn't update them on the next compile time. So, but I think that's not a big deal because I'm not gonna change the shader very often. I don't wanna think about that. So, no, don't wanna worry about these things now. Maybe just very, very far away. So I'm changing the thing on the build directly just to fix this. And once I fix, obviously, I'm gonna change. Actually, I don't need to change the other one because the other one is gonna be the one that I'm gonna use. So I think it comments it out the function just the stats, but obviously it's not gonna show anything because I'm not setting it's trying to calculate the position. It doesn't have the matrices. And I mean, maybe I should do the way that I was gonna say that I was thinking about just using strings on C because it's easier to deal with the shaders. But I remember seeing a video that someone said that there are some downsides with that approach. So I'm not really sure. I think I'm just gonna leave it like this. It doesn't really matter that much. As long as it works, obviously. So what I'm gonna do, first I'm just gonna test The thing is, it's gonna be annoying if I can't do the way that I'm doing, because the way that I'm trying to do is a lot simpler than the other way. And I think that the other way is just you have to use SDD variant and then SDD visit, which becomes very confusing. So I want to try to avoid doing that as much as possible. Maybe I'm just using the wrong function. Could be that. Because this one is not when the setting doesn't work, it throws a message there. No, but not yeah. It was showing just a message because I changed the position actually. So this is the annoying thing about this is that it doesn't throw anything. It just messes up the. So let me think. It could be this here. Oh, that's the problem. Is because assuming this is a matrix from another library. Maybe that's hopefully that's it. No, seems like it's going to the right place. Hmm. Oh no, just because this is wrong, the thing there. I don't think it makes sense to be the library itself because the other OpenGL functions are working. Suppose the library wouldn't create the program or anything like that. Like the conflict that I was having before with GLAD and GLFW. I actually don't know what can it be. Because it seems that everything is correct here. Like passing the location. What's the second value? Counts. Hmm. It can't be that the calculation is wrong. Because this is from the other project, so I think one thing that I can do is just I'm getting the information from the uniform zone of function here. So I guess I can call this function again. But I think that this doesn't. So the easiest thing is just to ask ChatGPT. Maybe a better question is how can I make sure? There we go. Hmm. I remember that this was something that I had a problem with because I couldn't find, but it was based on another way that I was trying to do. I was trying to use something like this to specify, and then some other templates there, but then based on some stuff that I searched, they say that C++ doesn't allow you to do that kind of thing, overloading the pointer with the address here. So I think it might be that, something like that. The only thing that makes sense is should be the value here. Hmm. I'm gonna comment the other one. I think this one is just gonna use the other one probably. Or this one. Let me Oh, it's because of the definition, I think. I really want to try to avoid doing the stuff that they were doing. It's gonna take a lot of work and it's a lot more complicated to understand what is going on. Hmm. They use this thing here. As far as I understand, I think you explained this sometime. This is some weird thing that they do there, so they are able to pass this thing. It's called the visitor pattern. So use a standard variant, and based on the standard variant, it's gonna figure out what the type is. So it finds the type base that's the variant, and then it calls whatever function has that type. But I really don't like this. Yeah, this is the variant. So what I can do is understand. I have to try to understand how they do it, and then see if I can figure out a way to. Trying to remember what's because I remember it's very confusing. I think they initialize uniforms somewhere when they initialize the class itself, the renderer class. I don't remember very well how it works. I think it's on the get program, and then there's some function here. It's probably the parameters, but the parameters I think is related to the other way that's. Remember, there's two different ways that they updates. One from directly from the program, and the other one using the JavaScript class that they create. I think it's somewhere here actually. And these parts of this sequence I didn't go too much into depth. I spent a bunch of time trying to understand the other, like the broader thing, but not this exactly how the uniform object works, because I was trying to create a simpler way to do it. See if I can find a simpler way. So yeah, I'm gonna avoid doing this at all costs, I think. But the problem is I don't see anything wrong there. That's the issue. And this is the problem is because one of them is gonna be a pointer, a shared pointer, and the other one is the value. So I think that's might be. So let me see which one is the shared pointer. I think this is the normal one. So the other one is a shared pointer. Or maybe that's maybe I have to. Hmm. Maybe I'm confusing this with this thing. So maybe they're both. They're both just a copy that I have to send. But I think if I remove, it's not gonna solve anything. Still gives the error. This is another thing that is weird. I'm not pretty sure if it's because of the ID that is going to this function here. It's a matrix war and it's a single value, so I assume that's so the pure uniform array should be when you want to set multiple values at the same time, I think. So if you want to send an array of matrices, for example, I think, then to this part of the branch would go to this functions. And this structure thing, I don't know what's the purpose of it. Maybe that's what I need to clarify. Hmm. So this is sparse. So it is the wrong. So I guess it's just an ID thing. It's going to the wrong function there. So this is when we have a struct inside of the shader. Oh, I don't understand why it's not working though. That's the problem. I'm gonna search for the OpenGL error then. I guess the easiest thing to do is just test this. That's all the errors. But I have no idea. Like the only thing that makes sense to me that is wrong is the last value here. The rest seems to be obviously these two arguments. It doesn't matter that much. And this one seems to be correct because the printing there. So that should be something to do with this. It can't be anything like with glad or anything else, because now I know that it works if I change the value there. So everything else should be correct. I guess the other thing that I can do is try to, but if I put the functionality directly on the function, it's not gonna be. I'm gonna have to change a bunch of stuff, I think, because of this uniform. Hmm. Maybe if I try to cast. Hmm. Oh no, it's correct. Oh no, but it's calling this. So maybe it's because of this like transition here. I think yeah, it's gonna give me an error. November data. That's elements 0. Enter to an array of counts. Count values. I wish I could see like what exactly the error is, as I have no no idea now. Like everything seems correct to me, because this is gonna return a pointer. So it's just getting the data from the vector, which is this, and then it returns a pointer to this vector of floats. So it seems like it is correct. That's the thing. I don't know what should do. I'll have to spend some time thinking about it, I think. Or maybe it's saying this. It's I'm gonna read the thing there. Oh, this is difference. So doesn't that mean that like maybe it doesn't have an error, so maybe something else turns the error information. Or maybe it is maybe when it returns zero, it doesn't have an error. Is not the error, but so this flag is when it doesn't have no error, I think. GL get error returns the value of the error flag. Each detectable error is assigned numeric code and symbolic name. It's assigned a numeric code and symbolic name. An error occurs, the error flag is sent to the appropriate error code value. All other errors are recorded until turn and the flag is reset to no error. Yeah, so if it returns GL no error, so I guess the condition is correct. Hmm. I don't know. I'm struggling to understand what it means. Like, because it's kind of confusing, but I think that it's going to return the flag of the error. So, like, if returns no error, then there isn't an error. But the thing is that when I put the other flags, it prints the number as well. So I'm trying to think about. It's very confusing. try to think about what can I put here to figure out what is the what exact error it is. Maybe I should just ask ChatGPT. So if I put the equal, it's gonna tell me. I think it's probably the easiest thing to do. Let me run this first. The interesting thing is that I think this only runs. Yeah, why does it only run twice when I put no error? I think it's because only one of them has an error. That's the thing. So when I put no error, it only shows the error for the projection matrix. So the projection matrix is the one that has the error, I think. But why would it print? Oh, because the other one. Because when I put the other one, it doesn't have an error. So because I was making it different, I think that's what's going on. So the projection matrix has an error, I think. And it's probably the thing about the pointer. So I think one of them has an error, the other one doesn't, and it's because of the pointer. Because here I'm passing as a value, but one of them is a pointer. The reason why it wasn't because of the render. The reason why I thought it was this way is because of the way he did this function here. So just trying to translate. Yeah, I was translating one by one by looking at the source code, and then I was just trying to overload the types, or however you say that. So this is the issue, I think, is because one of them is going to be a pointer probably, and then I have to dereference. But then, like the weird thing about this is why wouldn't if that was the case, then why wouldn't it throw an error when on the compilation? That's what I don't understand. I don't know why this is very confusing to me as well. I think it's because one of the flags is when it doesn't have an error, and the other flags is just specify which kind of error it is. I think that's why it's confusing. Acceptable value is specified for. I'm gonna put one by one and then equal. So now it doesn't show anything. It's probably gonna be this one, because I think it's the fourth value. So I'm gonna put different than. So it is the projection matrix that has the error, I think. Maybe what I can do is just create another function. That would be the easiest thing. I think I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna try to test. And then I'm just gonna change the names of the function. It's probably easier. Hmm. So I think the easiest thing to do is just test this first. But I don't understand. Oh, it's because I'm passing the kerma as a pointer. That's why. I remember I thought about this as well. But I'm not really sure, no, because I'm passing, but to access the value of the matrix, you have to do the reference with the arrow. So I'm not really sure. Into program mesh. No, so this is the error. Invalid operation. Also, I mean, maybe it's because I'm not. I don't know if I can do this. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. So obviously the question is why would it be a problem? Another question is whether or not this is just like if I remove here, is it gonna show anything? So it is the two of them. Or maybe it's like what I don't understand is if it was the one that is on the loop here, it would have to show all the time. If it was this one. So I don't understand why it's showing once. Maybe, but like it wouldn't make sense. Like if it was just because it is the first time, but that doesn't make any sense. Oh, so this is the reason, I think. So what I have just, um, I was gonna say that I should try to understand at what point do they, because this is another part that I didn't understand. Not that I didn't understand, but it was very confusing to understand. It's like and this is the one of the biggest problems that I'm been having with OpenGL. That I'm not pretty sure if there is a way to make it better or not, but it's just a way that's because you have to do everything into the certain order, it becomes very confusing to understand what is going on. Like once you have a bunch of different classes and functions. So one thing that I was struggling to understand is when they're rendering thing, what kind what kind of OpenGL functions are they using all the time, regardless of what happens, and what kind of functions they're using only once to set the program the first time that everything renders. So it might be related to this because you have to do maybe you have to unbind the buffer and then set the uniform values. But then like the reason I'm thinking about what's the best way to go about it because if I want to understand from this one, it's going to require me to understand or to dive deeper into the other stuff, the set value function. I think this function should run all the time though. So it should probably, yeah, but then this is the thing is because like in order to understand, I have to remember the whole flow of everything in order to understand if what is happening with the state of the buffer once it gets to this point here. That is the issue. Oh, this might be the problem. So I have to use program before. I think I'm gonna try that because it's easier. But here, no, but it uses the program before. And I think that's the only places where it says things. So it says the projection matrix here. So maybe this is the problem. Hmm, interesting. So I think it solved the issue, but it's still not working. So maybe I'm just gonna test something else now. There's probably another error. Maybe it is the value thing. Obviously, I'm not gonna leave like this if it works as well. Doesn't have any error now. Maybe it's because I'm not setting. Yeah, this one. So I think the other thing, I'm gonna try like this first, but I'm gonna put this thing before the this one here. I'm gonna have to think more about this because like, it's gonna be confusing. But I think that the reason why I did it here is because it's just easier. Because then I don't have to think about the pointers and other stuff. Oh, nice. Finally. Nice. Okay, so I'm pretty happy about this because otherwise I might have to spend a bunch of time figuring out. And so now what I have to do is there still can be a chance that, but I think it's gonna be less of a chance. But what I'm gonna do now is just to maybe it's better to call mesh program. For it like this. So the next thing to do is to change the. I'm gonna add more function. I have to think about how. Probably I'm just gonna get straight from the because I think I'm just gonna. I'm trying to get to the point where I have all this graphics, like at least the very basic level, figure out so I can start creating the graph. And I'm not. I don't want to think about. I don't want to do it in a perfect way, just the way that is gonna work for now. But I also want to make sure that I'm setting things up in a way that once it gets a lot more complex, because I know it's gonna get a lot more complex, and it's gonna be very, very hard to debug everything later on. That's the problem. That's another thing that I'm concerned about that I'm probably gonna have to study or deviate a little bit because I'm just thinking about the amount of different things that I'm gonna have to put together, and then like the issue is that I want to make sure that I'm not having any problems. And once it gets to the point where I have everything set up, the IMQE, the graph, and everything else, then once it gets time to change and to add more features or something like that to this thing, it doesn't break everything else. That's the main concern that I have. And I remember that I just changed this enough so that it works. Maybe it's on the header file. So what I'm thinking about doing is just getting the attributes of the class and then creating a function that does a bunch of ternaries, like one by one, and checks to see if the material has the attribute or not, and if it has, then it sets the value on the shader. And then I have to add the other functions, which are going to be the other for the other types of uniforms to set. And I think that's the last thing that after I do that, then I'm just gonna test to see with different positions if it works. Maybe that's an easy thing to test now. But, I think obviously here is gonna work. But I wanna have I need to test other geometries as well, obviously. So I'm gonna grab from the other project the front end and just get the exact same file, same values, put them on the file, and then use those values to initialize just two nodes and an edge with the arrow. Then once I do that, then then I'm gonna have to I'm gonna clean everything up. I think I'm gonna have to use Git. So I'm gonna create another project Actually, probably gonna do the graph on this one still. So just clean all the stuff that I put here, and then it's gonna be about, because the graph already have the beginning that I did on another project I was trying to use to study stuff. So I'm just gonna get that graph that I created and put on a class and create another library here inside of the graphics. No, inside of the libs. Then the idea is gonna be get the data, then create the graph. From the graph, create but the functionality to merge the graphics. This stuff with the graph is gonna be on the main project. So in the main project, I'm gonna have another function that gets the nodes of that initializes the graph, then gets the nodes of the graph. I'm not really sure if that's a good idea, actually. Maybe we should put everything on the graph. I remember that I was thinking about this, and the issue is that, like, the problem is the way that I'm setting everything up with CMake and the project. Because if the graph depends on the graphics, I'm gonna have to include the graphics on the graph project, and I don't think that's very good. So probably the graph should be just a simple class that uses the graph boost stuff to create the graph based on the data. Then on the main project, I create functions that based on the nodes and edges of the graph creates the geometries. Uh, then, oh, I just remember that actually there's still a massive thing to figure out, which is the labels. I forgot about this. And I think that the arrows are gonna be kind of annoying as well because of the curve classes here. But it shouldn't be annoying because of the shaders, because it's just, so maybe it's not that hard, I think. With the text, I know that it's gonna be hard. That actually might take a lot of work. So maybe I have to do that first. Because the thing is, I'm gonna have to. I was thinking about. I removed or I didn't include the parts of the that are related to textures because I wanted to make it easier in the beginning to do everything. But yeah, now that it works, because I think that's like text use beat maps or beat fonts, or there is a technique I think it's called sign distance field or something like that. So that's how, and I think it involves some of them. Some techniques involve texture, and I think the most techniques are going to involve Bayesian curves to calculate everything. But I think that's going to be very annoying because I'm going to have to spend a bunch of time again. So create class related to labels. But I have to do that first before I. But I think first, before I do this, I'm going to create simple graph or create simple graph. I'll create a simple visualization using sphere, edge, and yeah, just see if everything works. Then once I do that, then I can do the label. And once I have the label, then I can do the other library with the graph boost. Then receive the data, create the graph with graph boost, and then create the visualization on the main project using the two different libraries. And then the idea on the main project is going to be to create one class that is going to create the graphics on the OpenGL, and then I'm gonna use the IMGUI components. So like, it's gonna be a class that maybe should have two different classes. Like one that creates the graphics from OpenGL, whatever. Because I'm not really sure if I'm gonna do just graphs or something like that. So something else. So yeah, I want to separate the visualization of the OpenGL stuff, and then also I'm gonna have to work on the render target thing. Because the other thing that I was thinking about is that like the conflict between IMGUI and the drawing that I'm making, if they are using the same context. But I think that it's not that big of a deal because the only difference is that it is not very optimized to do the way that I'm doing because it should be easy to do the render target as well. But the OpenGL stuff is always going to be being drawn, but then it's going to be overlapped by the IMGUI elements. I think that's how it works. So if you want to do otherwise, then obviously you can change probably the default values of IMGUI. But then you just think about the visualization as a React component, for example. So I think that's how it works. And then the only benefit of setting a render target is that OpenGL has some functions that allow you to clip the visualization on an arbitrary value inside of the window. So I think that's, but I'm thinking about doing that way later on because I want to get to the point where I have the visualization. I think is more important. And there's a lot of stuff to do. This is gonna be like 5 minutes. Just, or I should put the group there. It's gonna be the same thing. Just put the different positions. The only thing that annoying is just gonna be creating different versions of this function. Yeah, this shouldn't be that annoying either. So I think I can do this today. I'm gonna do the two spheres first because it's easier to separate them. I need to figure out the uniforms as well. So I'm gonna do this first, then I change the fragment shader. Maybe I don't need to. I think I need to change. But I think this is one of the reasons why it took me a lot of time to figure this out, is because initially I thought that the problem was with the fragment shader. So, but I have to change here as well, because I now it's just this value here. But I think I'm gonna leave with these default values, because otherwise it's not gonna, or it's gonna break the thing, so it's better to leave with the default values, and it's probably not gonna be an issue. Then I have to create the functions to set the thing. Hmm. That's because I'm just changing the z value. But shouldn't it I guess they are overlapped. It's because the radius of them are the same. This is just a position. So I think that this is one of the things that was confusing to me, that I wasn't sure about 3GS, but I think now it makes like some sense. The coordinates that they are using is not to create the geometries, is not clip coordinates or normalized device coordinates from -1 to 1. They are just some arbitrary coordinates, and the transformation to normalize happens on the multiplication of the matrices here. This is another thing that was unsure about, and I thought it might be the reason why I wasn't seeing there the visualization. So I think the problem here is that the way that I'm adding the elements to the scene, so only one sphere is being added because of this thing here. So maybe if I put our object is root. I'm just gonna, I'm not really sure which one has precedence over the other. I'm gonna put it like this. Let me think about this. I'm not really sure. Like, it doesn't make sense for this to be the problem, though. Maybe something else. Because it is going to traverse the whole scene anyway, and then when it has a mesh. So the only thing that the group does is add them to the same matrix, I think. So I'm adding the group to the scene. I just putting as the child of the group. I don't think this is gonna fix. And it doesn't make sense to send the group here as well. Hmm. This is weird. And it's probably because I'm not updating. So, like there are some functions related to the pixel ratio and stuff like that, but it wasn't. It was just calling some stuff from something that I'm not gonna use, which is a state that they use, another class. And I think this doesn't have to do because it's only probably an optional thing you can do. It's most likely that I have to update or to call the projection matrix all the time. But it's still weird. What I'm gonna do is just I'm gonna test to see if I add the scene, if I add the sphere directly, what's gonna happen? I'm not really sure why the clipping is, like, why this thing here. I think it's probably because when you resize the window, you have to do the pixel stuff calculation. So it's probably not, it wouldn't make sense that is the projection matrix because projection matrix is never going to change unless you change what kind of camera you're using, I think. So you only have to set once. And the model view matrix, obviously, you have to change all the time because if you change the, or maybe not actually, maybe it's just once. Because the position of the object is going to be changed with, obviously you can allow, you can give the option, like giving the option to change is better, I think. But it's not necessary because the way that you change the position of the object is just by changing the value on the matrix that is outside of the shader. So, so maybe you have just set only once, either all the two different matrices. You only set once. And I think that this is related probably with, maybe not actually, because maybe you do have to change the model view matrix because of the camera. So if you want to move the camera around, I think you have to update the model view. Yeah. So you have to update the model view matrix because we moved the camera. So that one makes sense. But the clipping is probably because of G of W, because it doesn't update the pixel ratio or something like that. Or there is a calculation by G of W of what's gonna clip uh, once the window is initialized. But then once you change the size, it changes the thing. But because I'm not changing my shaders, it doesn't change my thing for me. So it just changes from GLFW point of view. If that makes sense. I'm pretty happy that it was just a simple thing there to fix. Because now, like, although this is still a problem, I think it's gonna be easier to figure out. Hopefully. Why is only drawing one thing. So, yeah, that's all that I wanted to do today. I'm going to stop here and I'm going to continue to do this. I'm probably gonna do it tomorrow. I'm gonna do this stuff tomorrow, I think. So I'm gonna do this thing off stream, probably gonna stream. But I think this true I'm gonna do off stream. And then if I have time, I do the the problem with the labels is I'm probably gonna do it off stream as well because I'm gonna have to watch a bunch of videos and study a bunch of stuff on how the tags work. So, but once I'm done with this and it gets to the points to do the graph, then I'm probably gonna stream again.